Anne Boleyn walks to the scaffold. It is May and there is a gentle chill in the air. Does she manage to keep her head held high as she scans the audience, looking for a last-minute reprieve? But why is it when we think of Anne Boleyn we always focus on the French swordsman and not the incredible legacy of her life? In this video, I'm going to be telling you how she manages to take out Cromwell from beyond the grave, arguably, and I'm going to be telling you about her legacy and the world that she changed even today. Let's start by talking about Cromwell, and I hope you will stick around for the rest of the video to think about what her incredible legacy has been. Now, Hans Holbein the Younger is the royal court painter, and if you've seen any paintings of the Tudors, Henry VIII, Edward VI, Thomas More, before he gets, you probably are looking at the work of Hans Holbein the Younger. Now, just like Cromwell, he rises stratospherically under the patronage of Anne Boleyn. Now, after Anne Boleyn has died, after she's been executed, we all know that there is the Cleves affair. Now, what happens, for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure that you do, is that Henry dispatches a painter to go to Cleves, paint Anne Boleyn, he returns, Henry likes the painting, Anne of Cleves comes over, Henry doesn't like her, Cromwell drags his feet, and Cromwell gets executed. Now, that painter who starts that process is Hans Holbein the Younger. You could almost argue that he is the catalyst to Cromwell's downfall. Now, I must point out that history is never this simple. So Cromwell's downfall is multifactorial, which is why I'm arguing it's the catalyst, not the only reason. Moreover, a lot of historians will argue that the Anne of Cleves affair is not that simple. That the idea that she was ugly is a Tudor slander that has lasted for 500 years. What we do know is that she is painted, she comes over, he doesn't like her, he marries her because politically he feels like he has to, and Cromwell ends up dying. But I think that it is a really nice idea that from the grave, this other person who Anne Boleyn appoints alongside Cromwell, she appoints one, he brings her down, she appoints another, he takes down this guy. And I love this idea, and I think, come on, Anne Boleyn. Wherever she was sitting there the moment that Hans Holbein painted Anne of Cleves and was like, yes, you paint her, make sure her nose is beautiful, make sure her face is beautiful, take it to Henry, he'll snap her up, and down you go, Cromwell. Tell me in the comments what you think. Am I barking up the wrong tree here? There is a poetry to this which I love. Let's talk about the rest of her legacy. Now, Anne Boleyn is a fashion icon. Now, people don't think Anne Boleyn, Chanel in the same kind of sentence, but before Anne Boleyn, the English are wearing what is called an English or a gable hood. Now, this is very modest. You wear a cap underneath it, and it's a triangular shape. Along comes Anne Boleyn, who has been raised in the French court, and she wears a French hood, which is much less modest actually. And this becomes all the rage in the Tudor court. This is the accessory to have in the Tudor court. Now, it goes out of favour after she dies, but for a moment she sets a lot of French trends. Let's start with how Anne changes the face of Europe in her own lifetime. Now, firstly, we all know that she is the catalyst for the English Reformation. Before Anne, Henry is actually a vehement defender of the Pope. He actually writes a treatise defending the Catholic faith against the reformers. And then along comes Anne with her own reformist faith, and she brings in people like Cromwell and Cranmer, and she may well have whispered in his ear that the way to get rid of Catherine is to do away with the Pope altogether. In this period, the average person listens to the Bible in a language they do not understand. So the Catholic faith very much believes in the power of the Latin words in their own language. And so that's brilliant, I guess, in one sense, if you believe that the language has power. But for your average person who doesn't speak Latin, which is the majority of England, each week they listen to the service in a language that they do not understand. This is why stained glass windows are so important. And the reformist faith is saying that's crazy, and they remove the Pope, his bishops, his priests as intermediaries between the man and God. What they say is you can read your Bible in your own language and interpret your religion as you interpret it, and you do not need God's agent on earth to tell you how to interpret it. Now, this is revolutionary in terms of the times, and Anne Boleyn is the catalyst for this. She's a very strong reformer. She appoints people like Cromwell and Cranmer, who are both reformers, and the shape of England and Europe in her own life is changed. More than that, she changes the political landscape as well. In this period, we have France, we have England, and we have Spain / the Holy Roman Empire. Now, 2 out of 3 of these guys are going to be friends at any one time, and the one who's left on his own is in a bad place because they like to attack the third one. Now, it's good for England if we are in one of those 2 friendships. Doesn't matter which, really, as long as we're not the one who's on the outside. Now, very cleverly, Henry VIII's parents married Catherine of Aragon, who's from Spain, and created an alliance because they married her to Arthur and then to Henry. So we've been friends with Spain for 20 years. Now, Anne Boleyn comes along, and she has been raised in the French court. She also wants rid of Catherine of Aragon. So we lose our kind of allegiance with Spain, but we are gaining, as a nation, we are being encouraged by Anne Boleyn to be friends with the French. And so think of the battles that didn't happen, battles that did happen, all because we had switched our allegiance from Spain in this period to France. It's huge. Anne Boleyn is not just some, pretty woman who sat about court, looking at her diamonds and reading her Bible and, trying to have a baby with Henry VIII. She actually has a massive impact. I mean, you think about when, you skim a stone and it kind of like skips off into the water. The choices that Anne Boleyn has made have critically affected what England is today. Now, rest in peace, Anne Boleyn, and also Henry, because we are now going to be talking about what her legacy is after her death. Now, Henry VIII desperately wants an heir. And in fairness to Henry, this isn't just because he likes boys. It's because his relatives have been murdering each other for the throne for years. He needs a son. He needs his son to be of a sensible age before he dies, so his legacy is secure. But actually, Anne Boleyn, the wife he kind of detests the most, remember he destroys her image. He gets rid of everything that's Anne Boleyn-like, and he calls her daughter a bastard. It is that child who actually fosters in an incredible age for England, a golden age of culture in which we get the emergence of Shakespeare, we get Marlowe, we get, I'm not going to focus on this too much because it's not a good thing in our days, but we get exploration as a good thing, but colonialism is not, and that really does begin in Elizabeth's kind of timeline. That is a direct legacy of Anne Boleyn and Henry and Elizabeth. We get, in 1588, we get Elizabeth's victory over the Spanish Armada. Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn have the warrior child that they wanted. Anne Boleyn succeeds. It's not Jane Seymour that gives him the heir. It's Anne Boleyn. She is the one, guys. And this is what we should remember. She is the mother of one of the greatest monarchs that England has ever had. And he killed her. Also going to finish on a note about charity. Anne Boleyn is noted to have given more to charity, we think, than other queens did. And there's also something called the Poor Law, which was drafted by a chap called William Marshall, who was one of her proteges. Now, I couldn't find any evidence to completely solidify it, but there might be some suggestion that Anne Boleyn whispered in Henry's ear and pushed through this Poor Law. And this Poor Law kind of encourages local authorities to find work for people. And it was definitely an improvement on the previous times in which there is some sort of bigger push to take care of poor people. And this may be part of Anne Boleyn's legacy also. It certainly comes from the Boleyn camp. And so next time you think about Anne Boleyn, I want you to not focus on the scaffold and the French swordsman, because she is a woman who has given us a changed earth effectively. And in history, as a woman, it hasn't always been easy for women to have a lasting impact on the earth, and Anne Boleyn has that. She is more than just a French swordsman. And so I would love to hear your thoughts on this video. I love making them. I love finding silly outfits for you each week. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Please do like and sub, because it really helps small channels like mine, and I'm so grateful for every one of you that subs and comes back. I will see you next week. Thank you so much.